Greetings to you all. I've returned from the hellish purgatory that all bad video makers spend their eternal lives in until they can actually think of a decent idea for a video and then cock it up immensely with their poor editing skills and everything. But that's just how it is, isn't it? So I was thinking to myself, hey, I want to make a new video, but what can I do? I want to do something different. And I thought back to that Twin Peaks review I did a while ago, and I thought to myself, hey, why don't I review something else I'm passionate about, something else I love with a passion. I just said passion twice in the same sentence, but the point still stands, and I thought to myself, hey, why not Doctor Who? So, I'm going to be doing one of these for every season. Yep, that's right, all 36 of them, including the movies and all that, if they're not technically season, just don't, okay, side note number 1, first 6 seasons have several missing episodes, so I'm only going to be reviewing the ones that have actually been released on DVD. Some have been reanimated, like The Reign of Terror, which you'll hear me talk about in this episode, in this video, and some have just been lost and never released on DVD properly. It's a right old shame, so I won't be talking about Marco Polo, because that's never been released on DVD. Another side note, the titles I'm using for all of these are what is on the DVDs. What is on the DVDs, what they actually release them with. So that will be interesting to say the least. But without further ado, we will get started and we will begin our review of the first story on our list, which is An Unearthly Child. The one that started it all. First broadcast from the 23rd of November to the 14th of December 1963. Okay, let me get this straight. So 4 episodes. The first episode is a masterpiece. It deals with 2 science teachers. Just a side note. There's going to be obviously spoilers. But if you didn't realize that, why'd you click on this? And B, these stories were released like over 50 years ago, so I don't think I'm really spoiling much. It's not. Yeah. Anyway, so the first episode deals with 2 science there's a science teacher named 2 teachers. Science teacher named Ian Chesterton, played by William Russell, and a history teacher named Barbara Wright, played by Jacqueline Hill, who will, you'll see her in another role much later. We're nowhere near that yet. But anyway, and they're wondering about this strange student they both have in both of their classes, called Susan Foreman, played by Carol Ann Ford. And so they decide to follow her home, which, there's nothing wrong with that. There's probably breaking several laws, but hey, we don't think about that in 1960s Britain, thank you very much. Anyway, so they follow her home to her specified address of 76 Totters Lane, and what do you know? It's just a junkyard. So they enter the junkyard, and they find an old man who is the Doctor, played by William Hartnell in this incarnation, and he just kind of talks to them, and eventually they hear Susan's voice from inside the police box, and They go inside, and whoop-de-doo, it's bigger on the inside and everything, and their minds are blown, and whoa. But yeah. And then Doctor fights and says, no, you can't go back to your time now, and he traps them in, which, again, I'm not sure if that's strictly illegal, but again, we're not going to think about that, because otherwise we'll just call it protection rather than what it really is, kidnapping. Anyway, it always works wonders. And so he reveals that it's a spaceship known as the TARDIS, which stands for, well, it's debatable, but time and relative dimension, or dimensions in space. And it's a time machine, and it also travel through space, of course. It's time and relative. You get the picture. Anyway, and that's basically the first episode, and it's very good. It's very good. The problem is with this story, it kinda falls flat once it goes back in time to 100,000 BC, presumably, judging by the working title of one of the working titles, which was 100,000 BC, and they encounter the tribe of Gum. Again, judging by the working titles, yeah, it doesn't go very well. Basically, they get caught up in a dispute between two cavemen known as Karl and Zar. And Zar's father could make fire, and of course, this is in 100,000 BC, they don't really know how to make fire, and they think only one person has the secret to make fire, and when his father died, the secret disappeared, and so the cavemen forced them to make fire for them. Meanwhile, this Karl bloke wants to take control of the tribe, and it's all rather Shakespearean, and it's alright, but it's just really dull. And at one point they get chucked in a cave, and an old woman lets them out, and then Karl brutally murders her. And then it gets proved that he's guilty, and he gets driven away, and then that lasts for about an episode, and then he comes back after they escape, and if Karl and Zar fight, and guess what? Zar wins. Yay. Yeah. As pilot episodes go, if all episodes had been like this, I don't think the show would have really gotten off the ground. But our next story would be the one that really made it as a show. So, the second story is The Daleks, and it's much better. Much better. Written by Terry Nation. Now, originally they wanted Doctor Who to be a kind of educational program with historical stories where they go back in time and help cavemen and Nero and all these other people, and it probably wouldn't have done it. And they wanted explicitly no bug-eyed monsters, but then they realized, oh no, we don't have any good scripts. And so the producer at the time was a woman by the name of Verity Lambert. Called up a writer called Terry Nation and said to him, hey, want to write a story for this weird little show we got going? And he said, okay. Well, he wrote it in like an afternoon, and that was the beginning of the Daleks. So, what's the story like? Well, okay, carrying on, after they escape the evil cavemen of doom, they go back, well, they go forward in time. And now the last episode, they often had carry-on episodes, and the last episode ended with them walking outside and the radiation meter showing that there were dangerous levels of radiation. But anyway, so the first episode basically only stars the four travelers, and they're just going around on this dead planet. Quite literally, that's what the first episode is actually called. And I mean, that's okay. This is all good. And things really heat up, and they all start to get some kind of radiation sickness. Of course, they don't know it's radiation sickness, but essentially, Barbara gets separated from the rest of the group in this city that they find. They walk around in the city for a bit. Everything is all good. Sorry about that. Maybe you didn't even hear anything. Let's continue on like nothing ever happened. But anyway, yeah. It's all very good and everything. But yeah. So it ends with a strange sink plunger going towards Barbara, and she's terrified, and everyone wondered what the hell it was. And of course, it is the titular Daleks. So, it's the next episode, they all go, and the Daleks capture them, all four, and basically, they get questioned. The Doctor gets questioned, and the Daleks reveal that they are on the planet Skaro, which is the 12th planet in its solar system, and that they believe that they are the only living things, which, as far as we've seen, yeah, seems about, yeah. But, so of course, they're still dying from radiation sickness, and they decide we need to get some anti-radiation drugs, and the Daleks are like, nah, okay, fine. And so they send Susan out after them because she's the least weak from the radiation sickness, and yeah, she eventually, when she gets to the TARDIS, right, she senses someone, and it's a Thal. Well, it's what we call Thal's, Aladon, to be precise. Aladon tells her about how the Thals and the Daleks were at war. Well, technically the Daleks' ancestors, the Dals. This would be retconned later, but we'll get to that much later. That's in, like, episode 15. When we get up to that. If we get, no, episode 12, sorry. And so they, yeah, they already, you know, she'd already kind of found, they went into the, so, we'd already known that Susan felt that someone touched her shoulder. And anyway, so Susan tries to tell the Thals to make friends with the Thals, and the Thals all go into the city and everything, and you know, I can't really do anything. So they eventually escape captivity. There's a big exchange, and supposed to be a big exchange of food. And surprise, surprise, the Daleks kill their leader, the leader of the Thals, Temesis, and he's dead. So everyone runs, and they make their way out, and everything's great, except there's the fact that they left behind a fluid link, because the Doctor, I didn't mention this before, sorry, I'd forgotten about this part, but he had, to get them in to go into the city, he told them, oh no, there might be mercury in there, the fluid link is low on mercury. What's a fluid link, you might ask? Something that contains mercury and is vital for the ship. It's what we call a MacGuffin. Anyway, they realize they don't have the fluid link and it's still in the city. And everything is terrifying because they have to go back into the city. Oh no. Basically, after that, the Daleks they left behind some of the anti-radiation drugs. They try using them on the basically, the radiation was left over from the war, which mutated the Daleks and like pretty much everything and destroyed the planet, essentially. And they realized that if they try and use the radiation drugs, it kills the Daleks. So they realize, oh, we need radiation to survive, clearly. So that's all fine and dandy. And so they decide, hey, let's put more radiation into the atmosphere. So essentially, since the Thals are pacifists, it takes a long time, and this is where the story kind of gets a bit because for the majority it's just like them kind of convincing them that, hey, you gotta go and you gotta fight the Daleks, otherwise you're gonna die. And they're just like, no, we can't fight. And it just goes back and forth, and eventually they can go back. And so they go back to the city, and they sneak underneath it. And some random guy called Antidus dies. I didn't really care. I never knew him. Never given anything to care about him for. But anyway, and eventually the Thals destroy the Daleks, and everything is believed to be fantastic and great, and nothing could possibly go wrong. And then they fly off into space, and they realize, well, they don't realize, and they just get knocked out by a strange explosion, which leads us nicely into our next story, The Edge of Destruction. So, The Edge of Destruction, it's just 2 episodes long, it's really short, no one really cares about it. They really spend the entire story trapped inside the TARDIS. So it was broadcast from the 8th to the 15th of February 1964, written by David Whitaker. And basically, so after the explosion, they wonder what's going on. So they wake up, kind of weird stuff happens, they realize, I see, they all seem to have amnesia, everyone acts weirdly. This is basically stuff like, they basically, stuff like the, there's stuff like clock face melts, the doors open and close while they're flying. It's all very spooky and weird, and they all start to get scared of each other, and he even tries to drug them to sleep at one point. And yeah, so and they just kind of, and everything's good, everything's fantastic, until you get to the resolution, and this is the part that really annoys me. It's so simple, and everything else is great, right? It's all fantastic. There's nothing bad about it, really. It's got some really effective psychological horror. And it's just, they discover that the reason everything's going bad is the Doctor left down the fast return switch, which is essentially a switch that takes you back in time. And there was a faulty spring, and it caused it to get jammed. So it was the TARDIS warning them, and it's just because of a faulty spring. And it'd be funny if this was intended to be a comedy, but it was clearly intended to be something scary to some point, and it's just annoying. So I'm sorry for the short review of that one, but really, a short story really warrants a short review. what could have been. But anyway, at the end, they land in a snowy place, and Susan, she sees a giant foot, its impression in the snow, and it's all and that leads into Marco Polo. Unfortunately, we'll be skipping ahead because Marco Polo was never released on DVD because all 7 episodes are missing, which is always good. So we skip ahead about 2 months to the Keys of Marinus. The Keys of Marinus, which was written on the 16th of May, 1964.
things really by reading somebody's brains. So, actually destroy Hanks, lots of the Hanks brains, and lots of and Barbara and Satisfied. Not to mention all the transitions and the keys for travels show up and she never returns. Since then, she is a sample. The support all those, well, the side, and everyone like, there's another guy called Altos who also realized it's more than I was somewhere. I was sitting out there too. And they all joined together. That's operation final key. Meanwhile, everyone else goes to find second key. The final basically a way to get real hard to take a holiday for 2 episodes. I found General easily accepting just something behind statue. They get trapped because they went places. The wilderness full traps and going to the temple. So, everyone goes to the real journey. Alpha sat down. It's Alpha seems a lot better with the next location. I think actually showing up. Basically, I finally knew what my old man came back into because we're out of my road track that went to keep the word out to the rest. Again, he's another guy who said my arm town. And told him he is in G-U-F-O-2. On the rock, I don't know what that means. So, one of the times, because there is the point. And machine accelerates its growth. And so, yeah, it's and we find a job. It's not easy to turn surveys and evolve to a slow basic mechanism. And find a real trap and innovation with an equipment, said, well, it's amazing, I know. And the sound, he tries to get into moves, to break, to go back to height, and then it's still images, basically. And even so, the bandits have Susan. So, they've been around last decades, and there's these ice soldiers, actually, they find one of the key, two of the key ice soldiers kind of just start killing everyone, trying to at least go back to Mason's hut. They're traveling miles, there's one someone knows to tries to take Susan hostage in order to leverage so that you have to stay or and so it's go to the next one. And they go to a city where Ian is told that you killed the man with the found the key from the store. Here's the story. And I also accused him of stealing the key. So they put him on trial. They tried him on trial. The doctor showed something. Anyway, they spent the trial for 2 days. So you can get evidence and everything. It finds out a roof guard. There's a roof guard in Cleveland. So no one knows who she is. If you know what the kidnapper is, everyone's widow, Carla, who is infamous with Isaac as a sexual prostitute. Trying to tell the judges of the witness that he's guilty. I mean, I don't know. It's, anyway. So, the point to, I don't know what else I was trying to kill him. I don't remember. That's one. It was just he just kind of said, hey, he's friend, I was trying to question me. I asked him I was listening to something about that first. Everything except the executed, but I didn't realize that the architect was killed. Because it was acknowledging skills and exposing defeating. Anyway, he was in prison, not there nowhere. They realized what's happened. The first key was in John. That's the first key, conscious issue. She explains for no reason other than we need a way to get rid of him. It's just a bit annoying. Somehow through the sense that Eisen's motivation. So, it's okay. It's not on to our next episode, which is titled The Aztecs.
So that's essentially the first part of my review of Season 1, because I've been going on for what I perceive to be far too long. So I'm going to cut it short here, and in a couple of days, maybe next week, I don't know, it depends on how I go, I will upload the second part. So, toodaloo. Thank you for watching the whole thing. That was very
very rare that people do that. But, yeah, hope you have a fantastic day, and, see you later. Bye.